Everybody, welcome back. Not Safe for Walks. This is Brandon, and I've got the good luck to finally be hanging out with Mike Vick. We've been talking for like a couple weeks, like we've been playing a little phone tag or whatever. So I'm glad that we could come here together and fire off some takes. I think that we came in touch through the Who's Your Daddy podcast, right?
That's right. Yeah. Adam is fantastic. I kind of, I had set up an interview with Vaush for a couple weeks ago, and before I did that, I wanted to give some love to my local podcast community, and Adam was the one that I really knew the most about. So he set up a brief interview to talk with me specifically about national politics, which is something that they don't typically talk about. But it's obviously something that's of interest to me. So we talked for about a half hour on that and had a great time.
So, hey, I want to clip a part of your interview with Vouch where you talk about Bernie Sanders. We're going to just clip it. We're going to run it. And you talk just a little bit about your experience with doing all of that. All right, let's let it rock.
People talk about how Bernie Sanders is not a socialist. Whatever, okay, whatever you want to say about him, he's a social democrat, whatever. A social democrat radicalized millions of people, myself included. I started off one way in 2015, and I ended 2016 as a democratic socialist. And now I'm on this other path of I've gone from left-leaning Dem to democratic socialist to libertarian socialist, and I'm running for office because this guy ran as a Democrat.
And I think it's also a real testament to the frailty of the system, that in spite of America being, I'm going to use a very academic term here, cucked when it comes to workers' rights. I mean, thoroughly cucked. Like this of the bourgeois democracies, we truly have the bougiest. The Overton window is incredibly narrow in this country, or it was. And the fact that in spite of all of that, in spite of a half century of Red Scare McCarthyist bullshit, stamping down anything even remotely resembling leftism in this country, the assassination of Black Panther Party leaders, everything, in spite of all of that, that Bernie Sanders can still come within a spitting distance of the presidency from the position of an independent initially is insane. Right. And I think that speaks a lot. I mean, it really is, you can stomp the flowers, but you can't stop the spring. I think it really does speak to the tenacity of the movement, that it emerges, as long as capitalism exists, so too will socialism, like its shadow. You can't actually stomp it out. It's not possible. It will always rear its head.
So listen, that being kind of an interesting video clip, there are a couple of things that come to mind as I watch it. First of all, you kind of alluded to your journey, and Vouch, of course, goes on to make his own point because that's how he gets down. Can you talk, now that you've got a little breathing room, can you talk a little bit about what your political journey was like, how you started, how you were raised, and what's happened maybe over the last 5 or 6 years to kind of change your opinions or move you in a different direction?
Sure. So, I grew up in a Democratic household. My dad was a union iron worker and a rabble-rousing one at that. He was involved in strikes and union votes and all of that. But my upbringing in that, my dad had taken over our local county party. And had made every effort to raise us in really a very political household. But my dad is a vote blue no matter who kind of guy.
Right.
He's left leaning, and when I turned 18, my first election was the year 2000. And I was really activated by the Ralph Nader campaign, Green Party campaign, and so I love that campaign. I love Ralph Nader to this day, but I'm 18 years old. I read a little Marx in high school, so I think I know something, and I vote for Ralph Nader, hoping maybe he can reach that threshold, that 5% threshold in 2000. And then what happened, and George Bush gets elected, and folks like me get blamed for that. I think wrongly in retrospect, but I'm 18 years old. My dad, I tell my dad that I voted for Ralph Nader, and he's not super happy about that. And so really didn't have the intellectual wherewithal in my late teens to sort of push back against my father, who I still respect deeply to this day, and the political work that he's done. And so I kind of went to sleep, for 15 years. I wanted the party to move left, but didn't know how to make that happen. And so, I voted for the best candidate I could find in the Democratic primary, and then just kind of knuckled under in the general and voted for whoever the Democratic nominee was. And then Bernie Sanders comes along, and I'm a political person. I followed politics closely. Was one of the few people who actually knew who he was when he voted, when he decided to run in 2015. And I was excited that somebody like that was running in the Democratic Party primary. So I went all in on Bernie Sanders in 2015, and was deeply disappointed for sure that he didn't win. It was obviously an underdog campaign from the beginning, but there was a real possibility, I thought, there that he might actually win an upset win there in 2016. And when it didn't happen, I wasn't in a position where I felt like I could knuckle under and vote for Hillary. It was a different time, and I was in a different place in my life where I felt like I had that both the underpinning of political theory and actually doing political work myself, and I didn't feel the need to knuckle under anymore. And so it amazes me in some respects the degree to which people that I respected going into 2015 and just like politically loathed coming out of 2016. The whole MSNBC crowd, the liberal crowd that I just didn't fit in with anymore. And so I voted for Jill Stein in 2016. And unlike my vote for Ralph Nader in 2000, I'm in my late 20s, early 30s there. I'm not feeling like I have to respect folks who are telling me don't do this. It's a bad move. So I voted for Jill Stein. I'm proud of that vote, and I start to move to the left. So going into 2016, didn't really feel like I needed to.
Okay. Well, let me ask you like two questions, and one of these kind of broaden your thought process here.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a confrontation that you had in 2016, where you talked about, hey, you had that conversation in 2000, and you were like, man, I got to get out the way. What changed in your personal character, or what you had seen, to make you maybe more confident in your opinions like 20 years later? as an adult, maybe more so in your own right?
Yeah, well,
Basically, like, what do you tell? Well, I guess maybe these are two slightly different stories. But like, what do you tell a kid who's like 20 now, and maybe their dad is yelling at them? Like, what would you have told yourself in 2000 to maybe have more perspective on it, or is it just something that had to come with time?
well, certainly it does come with time, and there is a degree to which, though, that having watched the Democratic Party drift to the right on issues like the economy and war policy, and watching people, vote for wars and extend those wars. Barack Obama bombing 7 countries that we weren't at war with when he started in office, and not prosecuting a single person for the economic collapse in 2008, and really welcoming with open arms folks that had worked for Goldman Sachs, that had worked in these sort of very compromised positions, seeing them fail up into the White House, and continue this sort of neoliberal economic policy. Watching that happen, for 8 years, and feeling like we could have done so much better, that we could have moved the country in such a different direction. And then, being sort of radicalized by the Occupy Wall Street movement, and seeing the degree to which someone that I voted for twice, Barack Obama, just sort of sit on his hands, and not take the opportunity afforded by that movement to move to the left. And not only that, but turning a blind eye as that movement got rolled up by police across this country, particularly in Zuccotti Park. And then, again, seeing a man who sort of embodied those values within a political sphere, Bernie Sanders, coming onto the scene, and willing to speak that truth to power, and say, listen, Obama was not it, that he didn't do right by the left, and had a completely different sort of theory of change in this country, where you needed a movement, not just a man, not just a politician, but you needed a movement around them to push for change, and not being willing to just knuckle under and go back into the Democratic Party fold and say that Hillary Clinton was enough, that she was okay, that we needed to just go back into that. And then, really having a better understanding of the math of it all. I lived in Illinois at the time. My vote for Jill Stein did not cause Donald Trump to get elected. And understanding that that most states were not really in play, and that in a state like my own in Indiana, my vote for Hillary Clinton, or my vote for Joe Biden, or my vote for any Democrat is about as effective as it regards the Electoral College as my vote for Mickey Mouse. There's no effect whatsoever for a Democrat voting for a Democrat in a red state.
Let me ask you 2 questions.
Yeah.
Number one, I guess I should ask just about Jill Stein. Throwing out the strategic decision of voting for a third party in a state that's not likely to swing in one direction or another. Like, we know Indiana is probably going to be a red state at the end of all this. To what degree is a Stein vote a genuine vote for her as a person to run the mechanisms of the United States government, or is it just a vote for the Green Party?
So in the case of Jill Stein, you know, I thought that she had a very charismatic way of talking about these issues, and you know, I thought that she was certainly intelligent enough to you know, run for office and to be the person that I thought I would be willing to entrust the presidency to. The Green Party platform, I think, is one of the best in the country, and you know, I think that the Democratic Party, you know, would be, you know, would be in a much better place if we simply adopted most, if not all, of that platform wholesale. So
let me ask,
I think it's both and in the case of Jill Stein.
let me ask you this. In a world where it's 2020 and Bernie Sanders is the nominee, and you live in Indiana, which is a red state, given that same line of logic, would you have voted for someone like Howie Hawkins because the principle of building an independent third party was important to you? Or do you think that since Bernie met your like internal moral threshold, that it was still useful for you to vote for him, even if you didn't think he would get the electoral votes?
You know, I think it's a great question. I've actually never heard it phrased that way. So in the case of Bernie Sanders being the nominee in 2020, I think that there is there's a moral calculus there that differs from the one with Joe Biden being the nominee, because he does meet that minimum threshold. He's not my 100% ideal candidate. It's something that a lot of liberals think that he's some kind of cult figure. He's not. A lot of us are well to the left of him, but you know, I think that the calculus there is a little bit different because you know, I would want to see a Democratic Party run by Bernie Sanders doing better in a state like my own.
Right.
I have no real need to see that with Joe Biden being the nominee, and I do think that there's a potential if Bernie Sanders were the nominee to increase turnout to the level that perhaps a state like mine would be in play. Whereas with Joe Biden, with a typical neoliberal candidate, I don't think that you're going to see that.
Okay. Let me kind of ask you this as a question. We're kind of talking about the strategic value of voting for like a candidate that closely aligns with your values. Is there anybody else in the Democratic Party who ran for president that you would have supported in a red state?
I could have theoretically supported someone like Elizabeth Warren, potentially. But that even she, you know, really is potentially a bridge too far. Not necessarily because of her public stances on issues, but because she has really seemed willing to capitulate a lot more than Bernie Sanders has been willing to do so. And her theory of change is completely different, really, than Bernie Sanders. He's really more of a movement politician, and she has been really more of an